Hi, I'm Nyree, and today we're going to talk about what are the pros and cons of adopting alongside having your own children. And so I've got 5 children of my own before I adopted my 2 sons, and so I'm just going to talk about what I would have liked to have considered maybe before I went ahead and adopted. We knew our sons as foster sons before we adopted, so it was a little bit different. But having other children in the home alongside my birth children had its good points and its bad points. So let's look at the positives first. First of all, I think anybody who's had children of their own and has had experience of had children, they know they like to have children around. That's the first thing. You like children because you've had children and now you want to adopt. So you have a passion for children, and that's a great advantage in a sense because you know what your expectations are going to be. You know to a certain extent what's going to happen at each stage of development. The second thing that is really positive about the fact that you already have siblings in the house is you have a ready-made family for the adopted child to come into. So it's going to be a little bit easier, I would say, for an adopted child or foster child even to come into a family where there's already children to play with, and it's not totally reliant on you to provide all of that entertainment for them. So that's my second point. So the other side of that, of course, is it's a great experience for your own biological children to have an adopted or foster child into the home, and they're going to learn a lot from it. They're going to learn a lot that practices that you've done as a family or things that were a given are not necessarily a given. They're going to learn from what the adopted child brings with them. So it's a great experience, I think, for your biological children. I'm sure that mine would say that they've learned a lot through us fostering and adopting, and I'm sure they would say, to the most part anyway, that it is a positive experience for them and that they've gained a lot from it. And another positive is the love that that adopted child is going to bring into your family home. Regardless of whether you have biological children or not, the adopted child is going to bring a lot of love and fun and laughter into your home. And so that's a massive positive for you and for your biological children. And as I always say as well, adoption is a very inclusive process. So whether you decide to adopt a child who's very different from your own biological children or similar, it doesn't really matter. You're going to be bringing in a child that has come from a different history, a different background, and is going to be bringing other things to the table. So that's a very inclusive process. And it may be that you're thinking of adopting a child with a different ethnic background or with a disability, or is very different from your own biological children. Therefore, you will learn a great deal from that, and it makes your family a more inclusive family because they're going to learn about different things, different cultures, different people. So the more challenging things are, if you want to see it as a challenge, but it could be that it's a positive as well, is that you're going to need a different style of parenting for most adopted children because they have come from potential trauma and they've come from a different background. So you're going to have to think about different ways of parenting. For me, what I found with my biological children is probably I could give them a lot more freedom and know what was going to happen, know that probably who were going to be the ones to test out the boundaries and who weren't. And for adopted children, I think it is a different style of parenting. I think there needs to be more boundaries, but I think also you need to use more therapeutic parenting, and I'll just put a link there for you. You can see the links to my PACE parenting video. It's going to challenge what you already know about parenting and turn it on its head, and you may actually enjoy that experience. But for some parents, that's quite tough because everything you've learned, you kind of need to start again and relearn it. The second thing is, of course, that the siblings or your children may find it tough that you have to spend more time with the adopted child, particularly to start with, but I would suggest that adopted children do need a lot of time, and so this could take away from them. Now, I know that some people ask what sort of gap should there be between my children and my adopted children. Of course, it does depend on your own biological children and the adopted children you choose to adopt, but I would say one thing to bear in mind is that you do need to give adopted children a lot of time. And so if your children are very young, you have to take that into consideration, and you have to think about whether that's fair for your biological children. The other thing to think about, of course, is that your biological children may be very, very jealous, and children get jealous of each other. In any situation, siblings are jealous. There's always rivalry. But if you're needing to spend more time to settle in your adopted child or to parent your adopted child, then you might find that the siblings are quite jealous, and that could cause rifts in the family. So just be aware that that could happen as well. And depending on the age of the child that you adopt and the level of history of trauma that they have, you may find that the adopted child brings lots of behaviours with them that are unexpected. It may be that in the profiles or information you've been given, you've been told about these behaviours, or they may develop. For me, with our boys, because they do have a high level of trauma and they do have difficult behaviours to deal with, I've definitely had less time for the children that I'd already had, and sometimes for my grandchildren, and that hurts sometimes. We have 7 children, 5 biological, 2 adopted, and so we do see them the same. We see them the same. We love them the same. We want to provide for them in the same way, and we want to live our lives as a family of 7 children. My adult children have now left home, and so we don't have the situation of the mix of family at home anymore. You will find that over time your family develops, evolves as you integrate your adopted children. It's safe to say that you come with an extra set of skills of having that experience with your own children, having brought up your own children, having given them time, energy and love, and you know what to do with adopted children because they're just children. But on the other side of this is to remember that you already have commitment time-wise to other children. You already have your set family routines. And so bringing in other children will ruffle the nest a little bit and make that difficult for a time. So hope that helps you. Take time to subscribe if you've enjoyed the content, and check out the rest of my playlists on the channel.